off today, to actually get to some speakers here, is Caren Musembi and Kelly Stumme from Ray Graham Association. Caren is the Chief Service Officer and Kelly is the Director of Community Living Resources. We met Kelly when one of our info tours took us to the Copel House in Naperville. The Copel family turned their home into a silla for their son and then built an addition onto the back of the house where Mom and Dad now currently live. On that tour, Kelly really struck a chord with Barb and I when she talked about some of the things that families really need to think about before moving forward with a housing plan. We thought the idea about how to create your vision for housing was a great way to kick off our day. So please welcome Caren Musembi and Kelly Stumme.
Good morning. Well, it's so nice to see a full house on a Saturday morning. And we are really lucky and appreciative for Linda and our group for inviting us. And we hope by the end of this presentation, at least you will leave with a different way of looking at how to look at housing. And again, as a provider, we always a resource, and we hope if we can answer all your questions, you can reach us out to us, and we'll be more than happy to help you. So I'll tell you a little bit about Ray Graham Association. How many of you have heard about us? That's very good. So when you see the butterfly, you're talking about us. So I'll have Kelly go. So we were founded in 1950, so we are almost approaching 70 years of doing what we do. We are a nonprofit organization located in our corporate offices are in Laos, but we support nearly 2,000. Oh, you can hear. Oh, I'm moving away from the microphone. I'll just take it. I feel like confined over here. So we have we serve nearly 2,000 children and adults with developmental disabilities on an annual basis. And we are accredited by the Council on Quality and Leadership. And we've been accredited for quite some time now. So what is our mission? Our mission is to create opportunities that empower people with disabilities to reach, grow, and achieve. So what is reach, grow, and achieve? We do feel like we do a lot of support, so we try to focus on 5 distinct areas. So at Ray Graham Association, we provide residential services that includes the traditional silla homes, community integrated living arrangements. We also have an ICF-DD, that is an intermediate care facility for people with developmental disabilities. And we also have a tiny portion of a kids' home, and we also support residential respite. So if you live in the state of Illinois, have a child with a developmental disability from ages 3 to 21, you can get respite services up to 2 weeks in a year overnight at no cost to you. And then we have what we call life skills, and again, that is how people spend their day, how people learn independence. We also do employment services, so we work with a DRS to provide and support people who seek or who want to work in the community. We also do family support services. Again, that includes our respite, our home-based services, and then we do recreational services. So if you've heard about CSPA, NEDSTRA, WEDSTRA, we have a program called Gateway. And the way we do that is we have 9 municipalities that came to us and said, we are going to pull our resources together if you can come and be the provider and provide recreational services. So we do have a recreational department. So we like to tell people about our story, our history, and what we've learned along the way. I've been with this organization for 21 years, and where we were 20 years ago is very different from where we are. We still have the same name. Our mission has changed a little, but there are things that we were doing in the past that we say, we can't do that again. And why is that? Because people teach us every day what they wanted yesterday, they don't want today. And what they want today, they may not want it tomorrow. So we've learned that if we are going to really be a progressive service provider, we must listen to people. The people we support at Ray Graham Association truly drive our mission. We don't sit there and tell them, we are the professionals and we know what's good for you, so we're gonna tell you what is good for you. We've learned when we listen to people and when people tell us what they need and we respond to that need, we are able to be a better partner with them. So in the past, there are several things that we needed to do. So you see below here, we used to have a large workshop. Have you guys heard that name flown around? People go to workshops during the day. So we used to have a large workshop where we actually used to get contracts from businesses. And the people we supported spent their day putting widgets together. They got paid sub-minimum wage. You work a whole month and your check could be $2 at the end of the month. And I'm not trying to say one thing is bad or one thing is good, but we looked at what we were doing, and at around 2003, some of the contracts went away. So we didn't have work for people. And talking to people, it turns out that's not what people wanted to do. People wanted real jobs in real communities, making real money. Why do we all go to work? We go to work so we can get a check for 25 cents and say, woo, I got 25 cents. We go to work so that we can get money that can allow us to do the things that allow us to enhance our lives. So we all took that program apart and created smaller community settings, which we call community learning centers. So during the day, anyone that receives solar services from us or lives in the ICF or in their community homes go to various places in the community, but most of the people don't spend their whole day there. They are actually in and out. People have jobs, so you see cabs coming in and taking people. One of the approaches we take at Ray Graham Association is if someone has to work, they must be paid at least minimum wage or above. And that is what our employment department does, supports people to continue to have real jobs in the community. So in DuPage County alone, we partner with over 200 employers offering people jobs, and we have a 95% job retention. So we truly use a customized approach to find the right fit for people so people can have a meaningful life. So when we talk about housing, one of the things that we've learned along the way is the conversations, shared values, which equals to customized services. So we are in a situation where sometimes at 3 p.m. you get a call from an ISC agency and they tell you, we have a situation. We have somebody who is homeless, who is in, something happened in their family life, they need a place to go. And that is one of the dreadful phone calls we hate to receive. Well, when I say we, Kelly usually receives them. And then I get the phone call and then we go, what do we do? In situations like that, we may have to look within our system and say, what do we have open? Open beds. But that's an approach that at Ray Graham Association we do not want to use anymore, because when you fill beds, you have problems you can have problems. But in situations like this, we may have to look at the situation and say, this person needs somewhere to go. We are going to accommodate them based on what we have. And sometimes we've been really lucky. People have walked into a situation and it's worked out perfectly. In other times, somebody may come to that situation and then a month later, 2 months down the road, then we realize the setup. The people that person is living with may not work, and then we try to undo that as best as we can once a crisis passed. So I, again, talked about the 5 pillars of our services. So when we talk about the community and family support services, that we have, those are the departments that are under that cluster. Community-based housing, again, we'll dive deeper a little in this presentation about what does that look like. When we talk about traditional options, everybody has heard about solar, right? Solar, intermittent solar, that is really a traditional option where if you get funding, you are awarded dollars where you can live in a group home in the community. Once you get solar funding, it comes attached to what's called developmental training, which every ground we call community learning centers. So there is the assumption, if you go to solar, then you're going to go to developmental training during the day. But then we want today, hopefully, to talk more about the customized options by sharing examples of what we've done with families, and also family partnerships, where families are coming to us, telling us what their vision is for their loved one, and then we work with them to create those partnerships. That's an example of what Linda talked about of the home they took to a tour at in Naperville. So, customizing and partnering in crisis. And again, I'll turn the mic over to Kelly, and we'll start talking a little bit about how those things have happened. And today we hope, if you don't hear anything from us, or you forget everything we say today, you remember where to start when you start talking about housing. Don't think about, the building, because that's the easiest piece. There are other pieces that needs to be in place so that when the house comes in place, then it can really do what you expect it to do, or it can provide the assurances for you, your loved ones, and assure consistency moving forward. So I'll have Kelly take over from here.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share a couple stories with you. And then most of what we talk about is I'm going to share with you what we've learned throughout these stories. I can do it. That's okay. Thank you. So this story right here, family in crisis. Sometimes in the state of Illinois, crisis is defined as immediate. We like to prevent immediate crisis. So this is a story of a man who, he was in crisis. He was about to be homeless. His primary caretaker was no longer able to take care of him. But we had 2 months to figure out a solution for him. But because we had worked with some other people who are already in our existing program about what they wanted, what their vision was in life, we were able to connect these people and kind of get them to a shared vision. So one of the men in this photo, he came to us in a true crisis. I believe it was Friday at 5 o'clock, and he needed a place to stay. And we just had to find what did we have available in that moment. And he lived there and he enjoyed it, but it wasn't exactly what he wanted, and that didn't meet his vision. Same thing with another man in the middle. He came to us, he was with a different provider. He and his family, they weren't really getting what they needed. They wanted something closer to them. We fit that bill, but we didn't have the perfect spot for them. So because those two men kind of had worked with us and we knew what their vision was, we weren't getting them where they needed to be in the moment, but we knew what their vision was. Then when Mark came to us, and he was the man who was, we're gonna have a true crisis in about 2 months, we were able to kind of connect those families because they had a shared vision. And they now live, there's actually 4 of them now, they live in a lovely home. The family partnered with us but their shared vision was they're active guys. They're extremely active. They really have a love of travel. They've gone all over New Orleans. Their goal is to kind of get as many places in the United States as possible, and then kind of bounce outside of the United States because they really have this love of travel and sports. So really, we knew that that was important to them. So when that family came to us and said, we have a situation coming in a couple months, we have certain resources, we'd like to partner with you, we had other people that we already knew had a shared vision, so we could make that happen much quicker. What works best is if you can create something knowing who those people are. We've learned that if you build it, they will come is not necessarily something that works for most people because you need to talk about who those people are in that home. Our philosophy really is when you're talking about housing, the beginning conversation needs to be what is the vision and who are the people that have that shared vision, not what is the house gonna look like. You have to get there, but your work really has to start with who are the people, what do they want, how do we get them where they want, and then where is it that they're going to live. So through some of these stories, we've learned a little bit more about how to have those conversations with people. Another story that we had here, and this, I'll also talk a lot about I call it housing, but it's really when you're looking at where you want your family member to live and what they want, what their vision is, it's a journey. And where you start is usually not where you end. And that's based on having conversations. We have a group of young women who, maybe 5 years ago, time flies, I can't really remember exactly how long ago it was. They came to us and they had a shared vision. There was a group of families, they had a shared vision. By the grace of God, they had both been pulled from the punds, so they had access to funding. They really originally came to us and said, we want to live in downtown Naperville where we can be within walking distance to all the fun things. And they wanted jobs, and they knew what type of jobs that they wanted. They had a couple of people that they wanted to live with that had a shared vision. So we started looking through that. We went on a really long journey. I think we started in Naperville. We went down to Lombard. We ended up in an apartment building in Elmhurst, which is in walking distance to downtown Elmhurst. I speak about DuPage County because that's what I'm familiar with, but it's a thriving community. There's a movie theater and a bowling alley and plenty of places to work and lots of places to go out to eat, which is exactly what these ladies wanted. So they came to us originally with their non-negotiable was Naperville. But when we really started talking about what their vision was, their non-negotiable was access to community. We wanted it within walking distance. People really wanted to have jobs in the community that were meaningful to them. So as we went on that journey and we fleshed out that real vision, we landed on an apartment building in Elmhurst, which gave them the independence that they wanted, but also kind of the support and access to the team members and the community that they really wanted. And they're having an absolute blast. I can never get there to see them because they're always out and about. You'll pull in and say, hey, I came to visit. They'll say, that's great, come back another day. We're headed to go to Pint's Bar for a drink with our friends.
And Kelly, if I can add it just a little. Again, these families came and said, it's going to be Naperville or nothing. And then we had to ask, what was it about Naperville? Is it the location? Is it where they know people? But at the end of the day, it's what they wanted, how they wanted to spend their time. Yes, the families are from Naperville. They are family members who are familiar, with that place. But when they were able to have the same vision in a different place, it worked. The other thing that people also don't understand is about funding. We would love for everybody to have everything, but we get what we get from the state, and in some communities, it's very expensive. I mean, if we were to go to downtown Naperville, I think to get a 1,500 square foot house would have cost us $500,000 if we are lucky. But we just move a little further, and we happen to own this building in Elmhurst. The same vision, we were able to execute the same exact vision to somewhere else. So what am I trying to tell all of you? Be flexible. And is it really the place, or is it what's going to happen in that place? So it cannot just be, okay, it's this town or nothing. What is it you want to do in that place, and can you do it in another community? So,
how old were they?
They were young adults, early 20s.
Okay.
Yeah. The other piece kind of that we learned is, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. It'll come back to me, I'll get to it. So this was another example of an actual journey. We had a group of young men that came to us. They were really active. I say active, and everybody that we work with is active. It's really more the types of things that they like to do that they have in common. They're very sports oriented. They're always in the city, going to White Sox games, Cubs games, Bulls games. They're very into sports. They had that in common. And they didn't want to spend much time in their home at all. So we really went on a journey with them as well to figure out what it is that they wanted and where they wanted to live. Really kind of what we're trying to get across today is about how to work with your family member to determine what the vision is, because that's where the conversation needs to start. And I'll get to, I have a tool that I'm still developing it, but it's based on conversations with people and their families, because that's really a hard question to answer. What is your vision? Some people say, well, my family member just really wants to have their own room so they can watch television. When you really dig deeper, there's way more to that, and it takes time to develop what that vision is. And where you start might not necessarily be where you end up. For us, that's what customizing is, to modify something to suit a particular person or meet a specific need, which is why you cannot start your conversation about housing talking about the bricks and mortar of the house. You have to talk about who the people are and what do they want and where do they want to go and how do they want to spend their days, what types of support needs do they have.
And again, I'll add something. So I'll give you an example of things we've done as professionals, thinking we know better and then being proven over and over wrong. So we have this home that we had, and we had several young people, and we thought they are young. They like to go out all the time. They'll get along, we'll just, this will be the perfect house. So yes, we had a home, and we put five young men together, and boy, did they prove us wrong. It didn't work. It did not work because everybody wanted to be the king in the house. Everybody wanted to do their thing, and we ended up in such a situation where the conflict was not only the families, it was the people we support, it was the team members. And you can imagine when I'm sitting in my office and a family member says, when is she leaving? And the other one is going, and when is he leaving? And I'm going, no, that's not how it works. And it's taken us a long time to undo that. And that's why, again, the assumption.
I'm still trying to undo that.
Yes, we're still undoing it. So we try to tell people the lessons we've learned. Don't make the assumptions, because these people, are in their 20s, they will get along, and then this is a partnership. It's a family. It's an extended family. And if the families are having conflict, your loved ones are having conflict, then forget about the good house. Nobody's going anywhere. Nobody's vision is being met. And now when we talk about our partnership, we are doing, I hate to say it, but I'll say it, we've been now calling it, it's almost like speed dating. When we find the right place, we'll call you and say, we know you have a son, come let us tell you what we have. And we have had the families meet first without meeting their kids and say, do you feel any vibe? Do you get along? And then we put their family members together, and I will tell you, in situations where we've done that, I can truly say it's an extended family. These families now visit each other at each other's homes. Their kids go to each other's families. The team members are embraced, and the outcomes in those homes are absolutely, we can tell you real outcomes of what we are seeing, but we stop the assumption of, you just can't feel this bad. You feel this bad because you are young, you get along. And when Kelly tells you she's undoing it, it is a real issue that we have to undo. And then people now have to move again. You know how change is for all of us, with or without a disability. Families are already having, trust issues with the system. But now we are learning not to repeat our mistakes. And if you don't have services yet, you're looking for services, it is critical. You get to meet the other families, because your loved one now will be an extended family situation, and you want to all at least have some common interests, common values, because it will be much easier instead of everybody just, again, advocating for themselves. When is she moving out? When are you moving out? I think Linda said it better when he said, when we work together, we are able to achieve more, and that is one of the key things we are using when we are creating housing now at Raycon Association.
And when we start with the conversations with families and about shared visions, then everybody's on the same page right off the bat. So as things happen and we have to work through things and change supports because certain people might or may not be getting along with each other, the conversation's very different than, Karen, when is Kelly moving out? And Kelly, when is Karen moving out? This is what happened. It's not hitting the mark with what we talked about. What can we do to kind of get us closer to that vision? The lessons that we've learned. So there is no formula. I can't sit up here and say, this is how you customize a house. This is how you get to what housing will look like. It's about conversation. It's about developing your vision and changing it, modifying it, being realistic with it. The original group that wanted to look in Naperville, we probably could have figured that out, but they were all going to share a bedroom, and it was going to be the tiniest little house ever known to man. And then we realized space was a non-negotiable for them. So it was, is space what you really want? Single bedrooms, but with access to people, or do you really want to stick with this Naperville vision? And once we were like, oh, you really want to make sure people have their own space because that's important to people, but you want to have access to a community as well. And what that community is wasn't the non-negotiable, it was the access to the community. That's how we landed in Elmhurst. Collaboration, it's really hard work because it's a journey. Where you start is probably not going to be where you end up. It is about getting people together to see if the families have a shared vision, if the people that we're talking about have a shared vision. The closer you get to defining your vision at the beginning, then that matchmaking and when we get people together is a little bit easier. If you don't really know what it is that your vision is, you're going in blind and you don't know exactly what it is that you may or may not have in common. The way that we go about figuring that out, Caren calls it speed dating. I think it's really slow, long dating. And it's about the families as well. So we'll have families get together to see if they have the shared vision. Once we know that, then we have the people that we're talking about that want to live together or may want to live together get together. And we do that a myriad of ways. Some of the things that we did with the women that ended up in Elmhurst, I had a group of team members go and we wanted to get to know the ladies. We wanted them to get to know each other, so we kind of fostered that. They went bowling, we hung out with them, and the families went for a glass of wine down the block. So they got to know each other as well too. And we did that for months until we knew that is exactly how everybody was on the same page and we wanted to move forward. With the project that we worked on with the Copel family in Naperville, we did a lot of that, where we got the guys together, the families got together separately to really get to know each other. Part of that journey that took so long was finding the right people. And what I learned was we were having conversations with people that didn't know what they want. So once we kind of figure out and talk to people about what it is they truly want and need, we can match people together better based on their shared vision than if we're just kind of saying, oh, they all want to live in Naperville. That doesn't mean they want to live together, they have anything in common, and that their lifestyles will be the same.
Kelly, add something. We have the word labor over there underlined for a reason.
And bold.
Yes, somebody really smart told me when you collaborate with people, it's a lot of hard work and it's a labor. And we can sit here and tell you the Naperville project that just happened went on for over 4 years. And we met with families, there were events, there were all sorts of things, but most of the people wouldn't tell us, what is the vision of your loved one? All they wanted was a house. We want a house, you have a house, just put 5 people. We're like, no, that does not work. What do you want the person to do in that house? The other issue when it comes to conflict, you live with people you love very much. Do you ever have conflict? Yes. Do you kick them out when you have conflict to tell them get out? So we are trying to work with families and say, your family members have very distinct needs. Some people are very independent, some people need a lot, some people have, disabilities that may, present in ways that may be disruptive to the others. That does not give us the permission to just kick people out. So we go into our relationships eyes wide open. When I flip the table tomorrow, you're not just gonna come and tell me get out and put me on the cup. Then we have to work with the other families and say, we are going into all this, you need to understand everybody's needs. We will never put people in situations where safety is compromised. But sometimes transition is very difficult for people. So we ask everybody who is going into a partnership to really be open and to really give the other person time, knowing we will never allow people to get to a situation where it's a safety issue. But again, these are conversations you really need to have. Otherwise, we had families that wouldn't talk to each other. Somebody would park on the other side when they see the other car. But when you work together, it didn't matter. Actually, people rally behind the other person. People are supporting, and people are being very, very successful. So again, when you talk about what we're talking about, it is really hard. And we're not saying that to scare you, but we also want you to do it right so that you don't do it again. Your family member just goes through a traumatic experience, and now you have to move them again. It becomes an issue that can easily be prevented if you get it right at the beginning.
Patience and clear vision, that is what Caren just spoke about, and one person at a time. So our approach, I think I said this already, if you build it, they will not always come. Home is about the people you live with, not just the bricks and mortar. And that's really where we need to flip the script and have more conversation about who are the people you want to live with and why and where you want to go and how do you want to get there. and then get to, okay, what is the actual house going to look like? That's important, and it can't be minimized, but you just need to have the other conversations first. Finding a home is a journey. Where you start is not always where you end up. And the best place to start is to think about your vision and then find people with shared visions. So vision, the ability to think about or plan the future with imagination and wisdom. Imagination is probably the biggest key to all of this. It's really hard for us to think about being creative because everything that we're usually told is stuck in a box. So that's why we think about the bricks and mortar and we think about the house first. But it's really about the people. If we start flipping the script and having conversations about shared visions, we are very creative when we can get that. How are we going to fund it, and how are we going to get that house, and what does the house need to look like? Much easier.
And that's really funny. We are finding if we start talking to families without a physical place, they can't imagine it. They're like, where's the house? How does it look like? And we say, we don't have a house. We start with a vision. And it's getting, hard for families to really talk about the vision without the house. And I think the tool Kelly is going to talk about is one of the things we have to create and say, we have to help families to think differently. Because the last conversation we had a dad come to us and say, I'll just give you a house, put 5 people in. We are looking at him like, what? Like, no, we'll give you a house, put 5 people in. And when we said no, I think he was appalled. He's like, you have a house, what's the problem? So we had to ask him, but what's your son's vision? And he told us, if he has a place and he has his TV and, he can watch his show, that's good. And he's like, no, what's his vision? And so we had to pause and say, how can we help this family that really knows the end result, but necessarily doesn't know the vision, to create that vision for their son. And we are working on that, and I think we are really actually very close, but we were able to get them to be, to imagine things that didn't exist. But to them, they needed to have the physical place to be able to create the vision, and we're like, no, it needs to be the flipped.
Yes.
Have the vision, and then the place will automatically come together.
I will share with you as well, too. So I think I saw a lot of hands about folks who don't have funding right now, but they are on the punds. Now is the time to start using tools like this to think about what the vision is. And also to reach out to provider agencies that you might want to partner with, or each other. Don't wait till you get that letter with the magic ticket that you have access to CILA funding. Because then you lost some time with figuring out and really trying to develop what that vision is. You can do that now. We have plenty of families that come to us with wanting to talk about what their vision is, and based on the email from DHS, we know they're not going to get funding until 2023. That's okay. We can have those conversations. Things change, opportunities come up, situations change. You might not get pulled until 2023, but it could be sooner. Your family life might change. Don't wait to start developing the vision until you get that magical letter that tells you you have funding. I'll also share, this is just my 2 cents. If you do get a letter with CILA funding, CILA is a funding source. It's not necessarily a place. So you don't need to think about housing when you have access to CILA funding. It's about the people that you live with, and can my access to funding get my family member to their shared vision with this group of people? And that's kind of what we've been really creative about figuring out how to do. You gotta start with the vision, and then we can piece together, your CILA award letter and matching it with who has what else. But you have to start the conversation with the vision.
I'll add something else. Again, Kelly said don't wait. And I will tell you, we do speaker series at Ray Graham Association, and I'm appalled at how many families, their loved ones are about to age out of the school system, and they have nothing. Like, they have nothing after that. And we have people come to our community learning centers and say, where's the speech pathologist? Where is all the services they had at school that were entitlement, and people are completely lost. So we tell people it's never too early to start planning. Look around this table. Who do you know who has a child or a loved one with disabilities? What in common do they have with your child? Is there a possibility that you can all start talking about that vision, so when that letter gets in the mail, you already have that in place? A lot of times people wait and then they react. You are reacting because now the bus stop's coming, you don't know what to do, things start happening, you don't know who else is out there, but we are trying to empower families to kind of be in the driver's seat and start putting those pieces together. If you come to us and say, in my son's school, there were these 3 other, young men I think will be good with our son, but we don't know how to approach that. We have told people, just give us the names. We'll do the initial, and we've actually done that where we put families together. We'll send an email out and say, we want to talk to you about an opportunity. There is no commitment. If you want, meet us. And I will tell you, there isn't one of those meetings that we've had that hasn't resulted in something tangible for people. So who you know in this room, exchange numbers, have your family members start spending time together. If you don't know how to do that, reach out to a provider of your choice and tell them, this is my vision. Can you help connect us to these people?
So the vision, and in your folder, you should have a separate handout that has the actual vision in it. And you don't have to use all of this. It's not a document or an assessment. It's a tool for you to use to try to work with your family member to develop what their vision is or what it may be and what it is to want to spend their time, which is a novel idea. Health and safety, exercise, diet, mindfulness, wealth, saving, spending, employment. How am I going to get access to resources to do the things that it is that I want to do with my day? Relationships, who do I want to spend my time with? The kinds of people I'd like to meet. Time, what do I want to do when I have free time? Ability, what I'd like to learn. Skills that I'd like to maintain, which is an important conversation to have with people. Experiences, what I'd like to go see, try. That's probably where we spend a lot of our time at Ray Graham Association, is helping people access different experiences, because that gets you answers to those other vision things. The only way people know is if they go and experience it. You don't know what you don't know if you haven't done it before.
And Kelly, can I just add, again, we get a lot of families that have a lot of fear. A lot of fear of, I've had my family member for 22 years now, they're gonna be on their own, can they do this? And this is where we ask people to just look at your family member with a disability like the other sibling who doesn't. What if they were going to college? The same experience. And if you say they've never done this, I was at Western Springs on Monday for an event like this, and one of the families says, my son has no friends, and he has no, and we are going, we have a club over here, you can come join, there are 3 other people, they have similar interests. Sometimes the fear of letting go, we understand, is so great, but when you are looking at these opportunities, don't start with deficits, what your family member cannot do. Imagine what they can do. And yes, we do take a very long time to make sure people are safe, people can experience that. But again, what Kelly talked about, unless you are exposed to these things, unless you experience these things, you may never know. The whole that we just happened, there were families that were just like so sure their family members were going to have such a hard time transitioning, and they were going to have such a hard time. And now they are looking at us like they don't need us. And it's only been 2 weeks.
Yeah, one of them sent a text to their father and said, I'll see you in 30 days. And that was, we were like, wonderful. That's our goal.
Yeah, and that was the other woman was like, I don't know how he's going to do it. I don't think it will last the night. Should we be here just in case? And they're getting a text saying, I'll call you when
Peace out. See you in 30 days.
Yes, and even the family member of the son who lives in the front of the house, on Sunday they looked at us and they say, we were ready for church in an hour, and we had an hour. We didn't know what to do with our lives, and again, you have to imagine your son and daughters are more capable than you can, ever imagine. We had a family that told us, we'll never be empty nesters and everything, and their son moved out, and now they look at us and like, we could never imagine it. So again, don't look at the barriers of what they cannot do when you put your plan together. Really imagine all those things, and especially when you're talking, again, we don't say a high level, low level, we try not to use that, but there are people who have higher abilities than others. And sometimes if your son or daughter cannot verbalize what they want, if they need significant support needs, sometimes we tend to think they need less than other people, and I dare disagree. They want just what everybody else wants, and you need to dream those dreams for them, otherwise you put a cap on them, and then later on you realize if you had exposed them, what a great life and great experiences they could have.
I'll just share as well too. So those success stories where I feel like our job is really, we're doing what we need to do when people say, hey, mom and dad, go live your life. I'm going to hang out here. See you in 30 days. That happens only because of all the work that everybody put in, including the families, ahead of time. That makes the transition so much better for everybody involved because we knew we had the right people. It might have taken us a while to get there, but we knew it. We knew exactly what they wanted to do. We had developed plans and schedules and routines and spent all that time getting to know the guys and the guys getting to know us and the families connecting with each other. We knew that we were going to have that good outcome. When you go into it without doing that work ahead of time, it's kind of like fingers crossed, on paper this all works. And I will tell you, what's on paper does not match what people actually want and what they need. It's really about getting out and experiencing and spending time with people and getting to know them.
And just one footnote on that. When the vision starts to take too long to materialize, we've noticed families just tell us, you know what, just put people together. And we refuse. We're like, no, we're not going to compromise the vision because long term, you're going to look back and say, you know, why did we do that? And again, I'll talk of the home that we just opened, it took a long time. And along the journey and along the way, people there were frustrations on all ends. And we did not compromise because we knew the exact vision that family had put out. And if we had compromised it, then it will get us into the same situation of that other house that I told you about, where we just said, yeah, put them together, I think they'll get, you know, they'll be fine. So do not compromise your vision. Patience pays out because what you're trying to do is long term, not one day, not 2 days. None of us wants to move to this house today and then tomorrow to another house and new people. We want to do it right. So again, it may take a little longer, and it is okay as long as you keep your vision intact.
So then the actual housing piece, which is what everybody's here to talk about, is what's important. And I'll tell you what we've really learned is we want environments to work for people, not against people. As much as we want to be able to adapt and change the environment to make it work for a person, not against a person. So these are just some things to flesh out a little bit. Non-negotiables for your home. I always hear about location, but really when we dig through it, it's usually not about location. But to that point, you want to be able to keep the connections and the relationships with people that you've spent all that time building. So you don't want to move too far away. Who and what do you want to be close to? What do you want the indoor space to look like? What do you want the outdoor space to look like? You have to think about when it's people living together, you want to make sure that there's areas for people to have time alone, but areas for people to get together and do things in common. Indoor space and outdoor space. I know we have really cold winter months here in this area, but when the weather is nice, that outdoor space is a luxury that we need to use and make work for people as much as we possibly can. How many people would you like to live with? Who would you like to live with? What types of personalities may work best? And what type of living environment? So there's houses, there's townhouses, there's apartments, there's projects with families where families live in the back. It's all kind of out there and open. We're open to having the conversations about everything. There's no one way to look at housing. But really what you should look at is you want the environment to work for a person, not against the person. So if it's somebody, just a couple examples that we've come across, somebody who likes to move a lot, walk around a lot, or maybe pace. You want an open space or a loop so they can do that, and not everywhere you look there's a wall. Make the space work for the people so what they need to do, they can do in their environment, and the environment doesn't become a barrier. Now they're frustrated and now they're banging holes in those walls that are all over the building. You want it to work for a person. The more you know that in advance, then when you get ready for the person to actually move, the house works for them, which is easier than, oh goodness, there's walls everywhere, and now those walls have holes in them, and now what are we going to do about it? Because Karen's mom is calling me saying, Kelly needs to move out because she's got holes all over this beautiful house.
And that's another thing we also, we've learned from our experiences. We can change people, but sometimes we miss the point and we forget when Kelly's putting those holes in the walls. Why is she doing that? So instead of trying to write a behavior plan for Kelly, all Kelly needs is an open space. So when she needs to move around, she can move around. So again, think when you are creating the spaces, don't try to change your family member. Change the environment to suit them. And simple things like open spaces can change that. So instead of saying somebody has a behavior, it's really not, somebody's trying to tell you something. So we are learning as we go along the way, not to try to change who people are, but to change and adapt their environment so that they can strive.
Then just support needs, that's an important conversation to have as well. So the last page of the tool just kind of talks about that. What resources do you already have or know of that might assist in adhering to the vision? So that's really where we start talking about partnering with people. And I might have this really good solid vision that I have for my family member, and somebody that I went to a conference with might have a similar shared vision and might have already started a conversation with a provider about it. So really talk to each other and see where people are in the development of that. And at the end is my contact information if you want to reach out to us and have any questions about those journeys that we went on. Do we have time for questions?
We have about 10 minutes
All
for
right,
questions.
perfect.
So if you have a question, raise your hand and we'll get it.
You'll have to share the microphone with me.
Could you just repeat that website that you can get the puns estimate on?
That
Said
would
it
be,
once and-
Linda asked that.
Do you have it? Okay. Go ahead. Want me to read it? Okay. So it is dhs.ddd.puns@illinois.gov. You're so welcome. All right.
Illinois spelled out.
Illinois spelled out, right.
And what do you put in it? Put the name and
Name and birthday. Okay?
Hi, and when you're working with an individual that has limited language, how do you get to that vision? Do you have any tools that you use to try to elicit what their goals are?
So really it's about then if they can't use their voice to tell us what experiences have they been in the past? If they're young and they went to school, what did they do at school that they enjoyed? What did they do with their family members? Sometimes, and we'll get people coming to us and we really have no way of figuring out what they enjoy. So then our work is exposing them to different experiences to see what they like. But if it's a person who can't tell you, it's really working with the family member and fleshing out what they're currently doing that they enjoy, and can we build on that? What they used to do, what they're doing now, who are the people they spend their time with, where do they go, and really just getting to know a person that way, and you get to the vision then.
And the other thing we do is we spend time with people who know them best. And again, just because somebody doesn't use words doesn't mean they don't communicate what they like. If you expose people to different environments just from their reaction, you'll be able to know. But as Kelly says now, I'll change my terminology to long, what do you call it? Not long dating, not speed dating. But we do put people together for long periods of time and try to observe, what are they doing? How are they tolerating different environments? And then we're able to figure that out.
An example of that, I'll go and then we can go to the next question, is I've worked with a person who their people that they spend all their time with, all they could tell me was they really enjoy being out in the sun. And we came up with 30 different experiences for that person. And what they really like is to go to the beach and have their sand in the toes and spend time on the beach. So you can take something very granular and build it into something amazing and wonderful. And then it's a trip to Florida. You could really build off of with just one piece of information. So there's ways to figure out what's enjoyable to people and how they want to spend their time.
We have another question here.
Are there staff in these housing situations?
Yes.
How does that work?
For every single one, it's very different. So that's what we talk about when we're talking about customizing. Talking about what do the people in the home need. We don't operate off of this is the model and here's the staff that we'll give you. It's what do the people in the home need? What kind of resources can we get from the state to pay those staff members? And really piece it together that way. So each situation is very different, but we come at it from who are the people that we're talking to and what do they need? and then how can we get that with the staff? So it might be a sleep staff overnight, it might be a wake staff overnight. It really kind of depends on what the people want and need and how they're going to spend their day.
And one of the things people like to ask is, what is your staffing ratio? And people are surprised when we say it depends, because everybody wants us to say it's 1 to 3, it's 2 to 4.
Everybody wants us to say it's 1 to 1.
Yes, but it is different for each person. We can have a situation where we have 6 people with a ratio of 1 person. Why? Because the needs of those people can be safely and adequately met with 1 person. But then we do have situations where we have 1 person and 1 team member. Sometimes we have situations with 1 person, 2 team members. So the staffing ratio is based on specific needs, and that's why for us we want to really stick to that customization. However, we have to be realistic. You will get funding, and the funding is a certain dollar amount to support you throughout the year, and we have to make sure those dollars are adequate. But again, we always put safety of everyone first.
I'll throw in real quickly and then we can get to the next question. Really what we're trying to explore right now is, do you really need staff or do you need some sort of technology to keep you safe and more independent? Sometimes it's a myriad of both, but we can work around it that way as well too.
Here's another question.
Just real quick, what you were saying, CELA funding, what is that?
So it's CILA funding through the state. It's Community Integrated Living Arrangement. That's what CILA actually stands for. And really it's residential funding for people pulled off the ponds. And it's, I mean, I could do a whole presentation on CILA funding, which nobody here really wants to hear me talk about, but that's what the state uses to pay for residential services.
And I think what resonates with a lot of people is when you hear group home. You know, you've heard about group homes. That is the funding that funds the group home.
Quick question, how much housing do you own, or is it, what's the percentage, or do you look for housing that other individuals and families purchase, or how does that work?
We do it all. We have every scenario you just mentioned. Some we own, some has been gifted to us, some we lease from families, some we lease from other entities.
What percentage do you run?
We own, like, majority of the homes we own.
Okay.
I think we have one situation where we rent from, actually now 2 situations where we rent from families, the rest we own. So we have about 26, 26 residential homes. But the one thing in the PowerPoint we said, you know, when you build it, they'll come. We are learning. When you build it, they'll come and tell you that's not what we wanted. So we are
I'm going to
trying.
change that.
Yes, so we're trying very hard again, instead of having that vision and saying, oh, come look at this beautiful house, now move in, is what do you need? So if we have family situations where families are able to come with a different arrangement, we go with that. Because it would be best for us to be service providers and not landlords. It makes it much easier if there's a home and we come in and we provide those supports, then we can focus on what we are good at. But again, we've learned the hard way, you know, don't build it, they won't come, they don't want it. So
We have another question here.
With the shortage of DSPs or support staff and the challenge of the low wages, how are you managing to staff the homes to meet the needs of your residents as planned?
So we, about 3 years ago, really started focusing on the culture of our team members and really knowing that we saw the DSP crisis coming a long time ago. Not to say, I mean, we have a DSP crisis shortage as well too, but we really worked on building up our leadership and making sure that it's a really good experience for the DSPs to come and work with us. We have pretty competitive wages as well, but we balance and we don't overextend ourselves. So we don't have 50 different places. We have to be very careful about how far we go in expanding. And we're opening. We opened the Naperville project. We're opening another one June 1st. And we're being very mindful that we have the resources and setting ourselves up to make sure we have the capacity to meet the needs of what we want later on down the road.
And one of the things I want to talk about that is, you've all seen the campaign, They Deserve More campaign. Have you seen that about DSP wages? So
we're going to talk about this afternoon.
Okay, I'll try not to take somebody's speech. But Kim Zoll, our CEO, is actually very instrumental in the lead of that. A few weeks ago, we hosted, I think, most of the CEOs throughout the state in one of our community learning centers, again, with a campaign for the DSPs. As you know, there's a whole push for $15 an hour wage. Things like that. So we are in the forefront of fighting for the public policy to get wages to go up. Yes, the DSP crisis is real, like real. We struggle just like every other organization. But the one thing we are learning as an organization is to be competitive because we can't pay these higher wages is our culture. Can we create an environment where people feel empowered? Can we create an environment where people feel what they do is valued? When you talk about being a DSP, it's a job that's frowned about, by a lot of people without understanding the impact it has on the lives of others. So we are really trying in our own environment to create that opportunity of our staff members to feel empowered, to feel appreciated. That's why we are partnering with families. In May, a Ray Graham Association is Team Member Appreciation Month, and do you know who does it? The family members. The family members, get together and they really appreciate our team members. They don't have to give money. It can be a thank you note. We have families calling third shifters and saying, thank you for what you do. We have families taking our team members to breakfast. We have families going to our homes and making dinner. And I'm telling you, that simple act, we've been doing it for 2 years. This is our third year, has completely changed everything. Because, as a parent, I have kids, and when something happens at school, I never go and I'm nice to the nice teacher. It's like what happened, and that's how the teacher sees me. And we realize sometimes out of frustrations when families come to visit or, they show up someplace and things aren't going well, that's how our team members were feeling. The only, feedback I get is when something isn't going right. So we flipped that. So that continues to help us. But again, we continue to also try recruitment, whichever way, partnering with colleges earlier on, creating opportunities for college students. So we think if they come early, they get to meet people, they get to know people. Eventually, they may choose to make what we do a career. So we have some partnerships. So there isn't one answer fits all. The crisis is really real, but we have to figure out people's lives still have to go on. And if you look at the prediction of the DSP crisis, it's not supposed to get better. It's supposed to get to a point where the need is greater than the supply. So we have to figure out a way to.
Let's give a warm round of applause for this great